All right, I can see more and more people joining. That's really great. Just waiting a bit more for other people to join this main session. And then we get started soon. Thanks, Andra. Willem, do you want to join right now? Otherwise, I would just have let you come on stage in some 4 slides. We want to hear your voice. Okay, let's get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Sonja Franz. I'm the marketing manager at IntegerNet, and it's my pleasure today to welcome you to this Hyvä Meetup, the first of its kind. Hyvä Themes was officially released some 3 months ago with a big release party in a similar format, and today we meet again for this newly created Hyvä Meetup. So the title of this meetup is that it's your meeting place for all things Hyvä. So whatever your experience with Hyvä is so far, if you've just heard about it or already tried it out in a test project or even in a real world project, this is the place for you. We want this place to be an opportunity for you to connect with others, to enable collaboration and knowledge sharing, and to have a benefit for the whole Magento community or Adobe Commerce community. And you'll see, but this is a team effort. So your hosts for today are Andrea, Andreas, Ina, and myself. They may not always be visible, but they're busy behind the scenes to make sure that everything goes well and that you can enjoy the show. And then we have not just our hosts making this happen, but also today's speakers. So there will be Ryan Copeland later on, and John Hughes, who will tell us about how he made Page Builder compatible with Hyvä Themes. And then let's call him the special guest for. Willem, would you like to get on stage, please? There you are.
I would. Hi.
There you are.
Hi. Hey, I think I noticed that your presentation didn't update. At least for me, it's still showing the first screen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know what caused that, but let's hope that the next presenter that will have a screen is fine for me. Okay. Well, then it's just for me.
It's just
perfect.
You.
It's just me. Okay, so then let's say welcome everyone. I'm super happy to be a passenger on this occasion, and well, everyone coming together and talk all things Hyvä. And we have some really nice speakers. I'm super happy that they wanted to break the ice on the first ever Hyvä Meetup. And I'm super glad that Integer took the initiative to start up this meetup and host everything around it. So thanks for that, Sonja and the rest of the team, whole IntegerNet team. Yeah, I'm super stoked for tonight. I'd say bring it on. And one thing I wanted to mention, I decided last minute to give it a little bit of marketing boost before 4 hours before the event started. So that happened on Twitter. And if you look at Twitter at the Hyvä.io page and you find a tweet and retweet that, at the end of the meetup, I'll make one person happy with a free license. So go retweet and tell people to join in on the party here. So
spread the word.
Yeah, improvise and impulsive as always, but it seemed like a nice little gift for the evening.
Yeah, I think there will be quite a few who would be eager to have a license just to play around. And
it seems everyone enjoys playing with it. So and actually that's a nice segue, as our friends at Magento would say. That's a nice segue into our first speaker, who has a lot of enthusiasm to share around his first project with Hyvä. So
yep, I'll get to him in a second.
Yeah.
I'll just move on with a bit info about Hopin in general and today's schedule as well. So Willem, if you could just give me a quick update if you see my slide changing, because I saw in the comment that others had a similar problem.
I don't see it. So maybe if you unshare your screen and reshare. Because the pity of the recording of our launch party was that often slides were also updating really late. So now I see your last screen. So hopefully for everyone, today's schedule. Yeah.
Okay. And if I move on.
Updates for me.
All right. Then let's hope this this bug is now gone. Because I want to talk to you about the schedule and then continue with the next slides. Yes, as you see, we have, well, the first point of today is the opening, and that's almost finished. And then we continue with our presentations. Afterwards, we have a general Q&A session, which is open mic. And then there'll be the official end, where we just close everything up nicely. But then you're still invited to remain here, hang out with others, get talking, and well, just keeping it open, casual for everyone to join in, to engage. As you see, time zone information here on the bottom. The ones I have on the schedule are UTC, because I hope that's easy for others to calculate, to switch in their own time zone. And there are some info about our main attendees for today are mainly from Europe. So I hope this helps. Well, this event, this meetup, is brought to you by IntegerNet, the main partner and co-creator of Hyvä, proudly presenting this. Willem, can I just mute you?
Sorry.
But I would also like to give a shout out to Max Cluster, who helped us promote the event, and also everyone else of you who spread the word. Really nice of you. We've got quite a few registrations, and I'll see later on how many attendees we have. And then also right now already a big thanks to our speakers who wanted to give this a shot and prepare some really great content for us. Okay, so for those of you new to Hopin, you are here in a session called Main Session. This is basically the easiest way for you to enjoy this meetup. You just sit back and relax. Everything official happens in the main session. So presentations, general Q&A, and the official closing will all happen here in the main session. You can wander anytime to the Hangout corner or to the networking tab if you feel like you need some direct conversation with someone else. The main session is moderated, so only speakers and moderators will share video and audio, and it's also recorded, with the exception of the later Q&A, which is open for you to join as well. The other sessions are open to anyone to activate their microphone and camera and start chatting. And in the other sessions, there will be no recordings. And I know there will be plenty of questions coming from you. This is a meetup, it's a meeting place, and you will enjoy your time more if you really engage. Hopin has plenty of features to do so. And I would encourage you all to make use of it, express your thoughts, use the chat. Some of you already do so. That's on the right-hand side of your screen. Also use the tab called Questions, which is the Slido integration, where you can submit your questions, upvote other people's questions, and also have some polls and ideas going on there for interaction. Yeah, I know it's a bit confusing that there's also a Q&A tab. That's the default Hopin Q&A. It's deactivated for today, but it's still there. We can't really remove it. So I hope you remember it's questions, not Q&A. All right. Yeah, if you want to meet others, you can do so in the networking tab. That's where you have a place to talk to someone virtually, face-to-face, anytime during the event. So you just go there, click join, and then if there's someone else also in the networking tab, you will be connected in a video call. Then you have 3 minutes to chat, and if it all is going well, you can even extend it, or you just say, nice meeting you, see you later, and then move on, meet someone else. So this is a really nice place for networking. The general info for you, will there be a Q&A? Yes. So after each presentation, we refer all the questions, we read out all the questions that refer to presentation or the speaker. And you can help us, or more specific, Ina and Andrea, by adding the speaker's name at the beginning of the question, so they know right away that this question belongs to this presentation. And the general Q&A is later on, as mentioned before, around 7:30 UTC. And then the Hyvä team will answer your questions about Hyvä in general, or a bit more regarding roadmap, or whatever it is you have on your mind. Yes, make use of the questions tab, or you can also have Slido in a separate tab in your browser. If you want to do this, then use the number of the event, that's 825-221. A big question of today is, will the talks be recorded? In short, yes. Unless anything goes really bad, they will be published on the Hyvä Themes YouTube channel. And yeah, when does it end? If you're already thinking about the end, then rest assured, we try to keep the official part rather concise. And we will let you get back to your day with a clear conscience around 7:50 p.m. UTC. If your schedule allows, you're invited to stay around, hang out with us until around 9 p.m. UTC. Please be a decent human being. Whatever front-end solution you prefer, people put effort into it to make it happen. There's no reason to belittle them or just, yeah, be decent. Whatever feedback you have, I'm sure you can voice it in a nice way, in a constructive way, and yeah, just help out others and make sure that we all profit from this meetup. And with that, I would like to invite Ryan on stage. And introduce him a bit. Ryan, if you could use the share video audio button. Oh, there he is.
Hey.
Hey, Ryan.
How are we doing?
So, good. I guess you'll do your own introduction in a second, but I just wanted to give you a short introduction to the audience. I know you're from Surrey, near London, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, from Weybridge, sunny Weybridge, although it's been non-stop raining here recently.
Yep, and so please, audience, if you have any questions to Ryan, anything that comes up during his talk, please ideally put the prefix Ryan before your question, so we know which questions we should address to Ryan straight away. All right. Yeah, Ryan, I'm really looking forward to your case study, see what you have been working on the last couple of weeks, months, I don't know.
Yeah, weeks. Yeah, weeks. Yeah, it is weeks, I think. Let me just get my presentation ready. Right, I'm good to go. Shall I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Cool, let's do this. Okay, if you go entire screen, it turns out that you can't share your screen anymore, which is not useful. Bear with me 2 seconds.
Oh, this might be an ideal situation to give the debug help to everyone. If anything goes wrong with Hopin, reload the page. It fixes 90% of our problems. There's something happening. We see something. And
we're there.
Now we see it in presentation mode. Perfect.
Great stuff. Okay, hello, Hyvä Meetup. I'm super excited to be presenting to you today our first Hyvä project, keslighting.co.uk. Unfortunately, the project isn't live yet, but it is virtually dev complete. So I'll be taking you for a spin around our test server today, just showing you a few of the features and stuff that we've implemented on this site. But before we jump into the case study, just to give you a bit of information about myself, my name is Ryan Copeland and I am the director and founder of Foundation Commerce. We're a UK-based e-commerce agency, and I myself am a certified solution specialist and developer. I think that's right, although I think the titles have all changed now thanks to Adobe, but there you go. Away from e-commerce, you'll find me cheering on the mighty Chelsea, although this weekend they wasn't so mighty after they lost not one but 2 cup finals in one weekend. So I'm hoping that form improves next weekend for the Champions League final. But yeah, fingers crossed for that one. I'm also a very amateur golfer. Man, I thought Magento was frustrating until I tried golf. Yeah, it makes Magento look like I walk in the park. To be honest. I'm also a big fan of Despicable Me movies, especially the Minion characters, and I've decided to pop a couple of these little guys in my presentation today, hopefully get a few laughs. So what we're going to speak to you about today, we're going to showcase our first Hyvä project, keslighting.co.uk, and share our experience to date working with Hyvä. Go through some of the extensions that we used and the concerns we had before the project, how we approached the project, and hopefully sharing this knowledge and experience will help you guys that are potentially looking to embark on your first Hyvä projects. I'll also share some resources that have helped us along the way. We come into Hyvä without any Tailwind or Alpine.js experience, so I'll be sharing some resources that we sort of helped us and our team learn the basic concepts of those two. And I'll also be highlighting some extensions that we've used in our project, and hopefully you guys will find these useful. So yeah, let's get started. So first, let's talk about the client. So keslighting are a small to medium-sized UK business that sell high-end luxury light fittings. They're already on the Magento 2 platform, and this was developed and managed by an in-house developer that was fairly new to Magento. And they started speaking to us at the start of the year and wanted an agency with a deeper technical understanding of the platform to help take it to the next level. The client's brief was fairly straightforward. They wanted to rebrand, including a new logo, and this was to promote a more light, a high-end luxury look and feel to the site. The reason being was that they was looking to branch into new markets and start including more homeware-focused products into their catalogue and compete with brands such as Lux Deco, Olivia's, to name a few, with the rebrand obviously assisting that. And they also wanted the new front end to be lightning fast in preparation for Google's algorithm update. Now, when we started speaking to them back in January, we didn't even know Hoover existed. So our automatic thought was, well, we need to start looking at PWA. So yeah, with the budget they had, it probably wasn't possible. So yeah, how we found Hoover, I'll come on to that in a bit. New logo, so we took their old logo and we didn't really take a lot from it, to be honest with you. They was happy to go for a completely new look and feel, and our design team certainly assisted them with doing that with the new logo. We also gave their site a fresh new look, again incorporating that high-end luxury look and feel. You'll be able to see their existing site by logging on to keslighting.co.uk, and I think you'll agree that moving them onto Hoover and the work that we've done is certainly a big upgrade. So finding Hoover, as I touched on a moment ago, you know, this client was really focused on the performance of the site. They had already been working with the Luma tech stack, trying to get that to perform the way that they wanted it to, and they found themselves really struggling with that. Hence why they wanted to get us involved. And you know, we automatically thought, well, we're going to have to go PWA. We explored that with them, and we soon realised that they didn't have the budget for it. So I attended ReactorCon and listened to Willem's talk there, hoping to find an alternative solution. And I heard Willem speak the words, and I don't think he said this exactly, but it was something along the lines of, I've created a lightning fast Magento 2 front-end theme that removes require and knockout JS from the stack. Well, my reaction to that behind the screen was kind of like this little guy here. I was absolutely buzzing. You know, to finally, hopefully move away from the Loom stack into something, you know, a lot easier to develop, was super exciting. And I was just super keen to hear more. But, you know, I didn't realize it at the time, but I think, you know, the majority of the Magento ecosystem will join me in that reaction when we first heard about Hoover. Our concern with regards, you know, to Hoover, it being a fairly new framework, we were certainly concerned about, you know, having to learn new things and the unknown. Our team had no experience with Alpine.js or Tailwind prior to this project, but we did have a deep technical understanding of Magento 2 and developing the platform. So although we felt confident, at the same time, we still had our reservations around learning these two new things. The potential for lots of bugs. I think, you know, with any new framework that gets launched, it's kind of expected that you're going to have to deal with a lot of bugs and issues to start with. And that was certainly a risk factor that we took into consideration when weighing up whether to use Hoover. And this was the biggest one for us, converting extensions. Keslighting had a total of 27 extensions installed when we started speaking to them in January. And we knew that converting every single one of those extensions was definitely going to prove a challenging task. But I'll come on to how we sort of dealt with that challenge later on in the presentation. So how did we approach the project? The first thing we'd done was took the client from version 2.3.5 up to 2.4.2, and we deployed that to their live environment. The main reason for that was because obviously Hoover, out of the box, is on paper only compatible with 2.4. I believe some people have made it compatible with 2.3, but we didn't want to take the risk of having to deal with a load of issues, so we just thought it would be easy to take the client straight up to 2.4. We also then carried out a comprehensive extension review. Now, this, I think, is one of the most important parts of the project for us. Because there was like 27 extensions, we sat down with the client and actually discussed which of these extensions they were still actively using, and out of the ones that they were using, what were they actually using them for? And what we found was that a lot of the extensions that they were using were being used for very simple tasks that we could quite easily achieve using custom development. So from 27 extensions, we dropped that down to 12. And then when we review those 12, the majority of those were back-end focused extensions. So we straight away kind of reduced the amount of development time we was going to need to have in converting extensions to be compatible. And this is an exercise I would definitely recommend any agency looking to take on a Hyvä project goes through, because I think you can save yourself a lot of time in development by carrying out that exercise. We then went and found appropriate extensions to fit requirements. And when I say appropriate extensions, I mean extensions that were easy to make compatible with Hyvä. For example, one of the client's requirements was that they wanted the customer to have the ability to filter by multiple filters on the category pages. And we reviewed 3 extensions to do that. One was a Headworks, Improved Load Nav. Another was Amnesty. And the third one was the Magworks. Magworks had 1 JavaScript file, I think, compared to the Headworks extension, which had about 25. So, ultimately the 2 extensions would have served the same requirement, but we chose the one with less dependency on knockout and require, just to make our lives a bit easier. Once that was all done and we had sign off from the client, we started development, super excited to find out what we could do with Hyvä. So let's see the site in action. Let's take you for a spin around. I'm hoping that you guys can now see my screen. Can someone just tell me in the chat if you can? Perfect. So this is the homepage. The client wanted a number of sliders on their homepage. First being a hero banner, followed by a brand slider, and also a category slider. Now, we had a look on a site called Alpine Toolbox. On there are loads of examples of all different components that are built using Alpine.js. One of the examples on there included a JavaScript library called Swiper.js. When we reviewed Swiper, we really liked the look of it because in Magento 2 Luma Stack, we tend to use Slick Slider a lot because it's really flexible and it enables you to set different settings on different breakpoints and have the slider automatically adjust to the screen size. And Swiper was very similar to that, the only difference being that it wasn't dependent on jQuery and that you could use it with Alpine.js. So as you can see here, this banner, you flick through one at a time. And then if we scroll down to these others, this one scrolls through the entire lot. And then this one only does one. And we've adjusted this across multiple screen sizes to better tailor the experience. The shop by room, the client wanted the ability to update these themselves. CMS block wasn't going to cut it because it would have meant them writing HTML. So we opted to install Magento Page Builder and just made it perfectly clear to them that at the time, the only thing they would be able to use in the page builder is the static components. And what we agreed with them was that we would look to make the more animated components. We would look to develop that at a later stage of the project as part of phase 2 development. So currently the client does have the ability to build these sort of grids on their CMS pages using the Magento Page Builder. Also down the bottom, we have an Instagram feed. So these images are pulled directly from the client's Instagram page. For this, we use the Mag Plaza Instagram feed, and we converted that extension to work with Hyvä, and I can give you more information on that later on in the presentation. We also implemented a mega menu in the header, and this is done using pure Tailwind CSS. And I think anyone that's tried to implement a mega menu in Magento 2 Luma Stack will understand the pain you have to go through to get that to work the way you want. This was super easy and super simple with Tailwind. So yeah, it makes life a lot easier. Moving on to the category pages. Nothing really to shout about here other than the fact that you are able to select multiple brands and filter the product selection by multiple filters. The client was really keen for this. We also developed a sticky filter so that on desktop devices, when you scroll down the site, the filters follow you everywhere. This was done using pure Alpine JS and vanilla JavaScript. Again, I couldn't believe how easy it was to develop these sort of animated features on the site. Super simple, super easy, and super quick. Moving on to the product pages. We've got accordions here, again, just using Alpine JS. Nothing more there. We also improved the media gallery, so we included left and right arrows. You'll notice that it loops through all of the images now. And also we implemented a swipe on the product pages on mobile. So the user is able to swipe through the images quite easily rather than having to press a button. The client opted to use a personalization platform called clerk.io, which is what you can see here. And we've also implemented the reviews.io widgets on both the home page and the product page. And we actually lazy load this. So to improve the page load of the product page, this doesn't actually load until you sort of scroll halfway down the page. In terms of the checkout solution, we wanted to keep things really simple for our first Hyvä project. So we had just opted to just use the standard Luma checkout. And boy, this was the final piece that we developed on the project. And going from like Alpine JS and Tailwind to back to the Luma stack, it was a real wide awakening for a lot of us. Yeah, it certainly made us realize how much pain we've been going through these last 5 years with the Luma stack, that's for sure. So going back to my presentation, I think you guys can see that. Can everyone see my presentation again? Yeah, good stuff. The performance results. So on the home page, you know, pretty clean slate on desktop. The customer's got a number of sort of images, and the way that they upload them, they want them to be high res on Retina devices. So we implemented the Urio, where I think it's the next gen images extension, and boy, did that make a difference. So not quite perfect, but you know, anything above 90 was happy. Made the client happy, so you know, for us that was good. Mobile, again, the images were drawing back on it a little bit, but performance is super impressive. You know, for us to get to these numbers on the Luma stack would have been extremely difficult. Category page, 100 out of 100 across the board. Super pleased with that, and pretty similar results on mobile. So yeah, you know, again, super fast. Desktop, again, 100 out of 100 on everything on the product pages. Slightly less on mobile, but again, I think that's due to the image sizes. But yeah, again, I mean, you know, for us to get those sort of numbers in Luma, it's a lot of work. So extension compatibility. I touched on a few of the extensions that we made compatible as part of the project. One being the Madge Plaza Instagram feed. When doing that, we didn't really want to reinvent the wheel in terms of sliders. We didn't feel we really wanted to use Swiper here either, because it just added a sort of another layer of complexity with everything that was going on with the API request. So we opted to use the product slider that's on the homepage of Hyvä and repurpose it basically to communicate with the Instagram API, pull in the content, and display it on the page. I was super surprised at how simple and easy it was to do that. You know, once you have a basic understanding of the concepts of Alpine JS, you soon realize that converting extensions isn't really that much of an issue. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. MadgeWorks LAD navigation, we also converted this, as I touched previously. We reviewed a lot of LAD navigation extensions before choosing this one. This one had a single JavaScript file, and when we actually reviewed the JavaScript file, we found that we actually didn't need to do any work with it because it wasn't needed. So we just removed it, and it was basically compatible out of the box, which worked really well. You'll also be pleased to hear that both of these extensions are available on the Hyvä compatibility library. So, you know, if you do want to use them in your projects, you'll be able to quite easily pull them in without any problems. What we learned about converting extensions is nowhere near as hard as we thought. You only need to really worry about converting front-end JS files and templates. So anything in the admin scope, you don't have to even look at. And converting the actual templates themselves using Tailwind is actually a really enjoyable experience. You know, you're not having to sit there, you know, tweaking less and waiting, you know, 5 seconds for your less to recompile before reloading the page. You know, using Tailwind just makes that whole developer experience much more enjoyable. You know, one thing I would say to anyone looking to convert extensions is, you know, first get a grasp on the basic understanding of Alpine JS, and then once you have that, you know, you'll soon realise that it is fairly straightforward within reason to convert extensions. It's not that much of a big deal. So how long did the project take? We quoted 250 hours, or between 250 to 300 hours for this project. And so far we've spent 220 hours on it. The project manager, when she done the final time report, this was the reaction. She literally could not believe that a Magento project had actually come in, not just in budget, but actually under budget. And yeah, so she's loving Hyvä as well right now, which is great. Compare that to the Luma estimate. For this project, we estimated between 350 to 375 hours to do this project using the Luma stack. So, you know, not only have we saved ourselves a lot of stress and aggro, we've also, you know, cut the hours down by a hell of a lot, and also saved the merchant a lot of money. Useful resources. So along, you know, when we was learning the basics of Alpine JS, one of the resources we found really useful was the Alpine Toolbox. That, as I touched on earlier, gives you loads of examples of all different sort of website components that you can build using Alpine JS. So super useful if, you know, you're looking to build something for a specific client. If you're looking to sort of learn about Alpine JS and the concepts, then Laracast do a whole topic on Alpine JS. They teach you using the Laravel PHP framework, which in my opinion is well worth learning anyway. You know, I've had a super good experience with Laravel to date. But yeah, the videos on there for Alpine JS were really useful to get a basic understanding. The Tailwind documentation is super easy to understand and to learn. You know, if you go through the tutorials that are on there, you soon pick up Tailwind and the basic concepts of that. If you want to go into Tailwind in more detail, Laracast also has a whole topic on Tailwind CSS that you can use for understanding of it. So now that we've finished our first Hyvä project, excuse me, I thought it'd be good to share our thoughts. In terms of the developer experience, it is A-star. We find developing with Hyvä really enjoyable. And it's, you know, it's something that we definitely want to use on future projects. I asked the developer that I had working with me on this project to find me a GIF for this presentation to sort of say how he felt it was developing Hyvä, and this is what he found. This little guy here. And then I then flipped it and I said, okay, well, if that's what developing Hyvä feels like, show me what developing, you know, the thought of developing Luma feels like. And he sent me this one, which I think is great. I think we can all relate to this guy hitting a brick wall here, definitely. Alpine JS rocks. I love Alpine JS. It's literally become my new favorite JavaScript library to use, and I'm looking forward to getting a deeper understanding of it. So to improve, you know, what you can do with it. Tailwind CSS is great. You know, we hadn't used Tailwind up until this project, and to be honest with you, you know, we're going to continue to use it as much as we can. It makes, you know, developing the front end super easy and super simple. Developing the Magento 2 front end is now definitely much quicker. You know, in terms of Luma stack, you know, we would quote at a minimum between sort of 200 to 250 hours. And with Hyvä, we're going to be cutting those estimates because it is much quicker to develop using Hyvä. Converting extensions is straightforward, and I say within reason, as I've already touched on before. You know, if you're gonna try and convert an extension that has like 25 JavaScript files, then that is going to be a challenging task. You know, I would always advise that, you know, you potentially look for extensions that will serve the same purpose, but, you know, will provide less of a challenge to convert to be compatible. Magento 2 is now definitely much more affordable, purely for the fact that it's a lot quicker to develop. You know, we even found that going through testing, dealing with the client's feedback and stuff, it was just so quick and easy to alter things using Tailwind. You know, and whereas with the Luma stack, you know, those sort of changes, they take a long time. So yeah, because of the less time it takes to develop, it's definitely now much more affordable. And this one for me is the most important one. You know, developing the Magento 2 front end is finally enjoyable again. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say that, you know, I've enjoyed developing the Luma stack, because I haven't. And if anything, you know, I draw comparisons from developing the Magento 1 front end to now using Hyvä with Magento 2. Super enjoyable, super simple, and, you know, better for everyone, merchants and developers. What are our plans for the future with Hyvä? As a business, based on our experience with our first Hyvä project, we have decided that we're going to use Hyvä for all of future Magento 2 projects that we have, unless there's an extreme business case to do so. You know, I really see Hyvä as being the front end that Magento 2 should have always had. And I'm super excited to see how this product's going to evolve over time, especially with the amount of people now in the community that are sort of getting involved with it and getting behind it. So yeah, onwards and upwards with Hyvä is what we are saying at Foundation Commerce. And that's all from me. Thanks ever so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you found some useful information in here. Obviously, I'll answer some questions in a bit, but if you do have any other questions that don't get answered in the Q&A, feel free to reach out to me on any of these channels, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that people have about it. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ryan. That was quite a tour. You didn't hold back anything.
No, listen, I hope people enjoyed it. I've been really nervous because that was my first talk. So yeah, hopefully it went well.
I think it did, yeah. And I also saw already that we got some great questions coming up for you.
Sure.
And let's start here. So we have a question from, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Vasily. He says, probably I've missed it. What's the approach used for managing the main navigation? CMS blocks, extensions, anything?
Is he referring to the mega menu?
I think it does, yeah.
Yeah, that's not using any CMS blocks or anything like that. That's just using the category tree model, basically, and pulling in the categories and then rendering them within the menu item. Yeah, there's no CMS blocks or anything there. The client didn't need to include any images or anything like that. So obviously, if you wanted to do that, then that might become a bit more complex. But you could potentially, you quite easily do that using category attributes. Yeah, it's all just pure Tailwind CSS using the category tree model, basically.
Great. Then here's a question from Christian from our team. How fast did your devs become productive? So training on Hyvä, how did it go?
Well, we put our devs through we told them to learn Alpine.js and Tailwind before they even looked at Hyvä to understand the basic concepts of those two pieces of software, whatever you want to call them. I was shocked at how quickly we progressed as soon as the project started. It was just literally like we went from 0 to 100. And, in comparison to our experience with developing Luma, the project manager was just like, we're actually going to not only bring this in under budget, but we're going to bring it in before the deadline as well. Which, working with Luma was always a challenge because of the unexpected issues that you got. So yeah, I think, my advice to anyone looking to start in Hyvä would be to learn Alpine.js and Tailwind, and then just pick up and run with Hyvä, because you'll be amazed at how quickly you can progress with it.
Any estimation if it's just a few days or
a
couple of weeks of trying out?
I mean, the guys looked at Alpine.js probably for 3 to 5 days, playing around with it in sandbox environments and doing their own bits and pieces. And then after that, they was ready to go. They was ready to rock. So yeah, I would say give yourself a good couple of days.
All right, great. Vahid asks, are you guys planning on using the default checkout, or is that going to change to React checkout, for example, or something else? And if not, why stay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking to move away from that default checkout ASAP, just because as I said in the presentation, going from the Luma, going from Hyvä back to the Luma stack was quite painful. So yeah, we'll be looking to use probably the React checkout when it's ready and available. We've also got a project coming up where we're going to be using the one-step checkout extension. So I'm going to be interested to see how we get on using that in comparison to the out-of-the-box checkout. But I don't like the out-of-the-box checkout. I don't think it's good enough. So yeah, we are looking for alternative solutions on that. We just wanted to keep it real simple for our first project.
Yeah, I think I saw the one-step checkout already on the compatibility tracker.
It's up there, I think. Yeah, so yeah. But I think even with that, I think you can still use it built on the old Luma stack. I'm not entirely sure how, but from what we've been reading up, there is a way of doing it if the compatibility module is not ready at the time when you come to use it. So yeah, we're going to be exploring that on our next project.
Okay. Yeah, Willem just chimes in on the chat and says you can use any Luma-based checkout. Yeah. Okay. Ina wants to know, managing content properly, is an issue for some of our customers as well. What alternatives have you considered to the Magento page builder?
I think there was an integration called Storyblock. Is it Storyblock? I think that I think it was Javier. I think that's his name. He was working on. We've started to look at that, and it's actually a really good solution. So I think for clients that just need basic requirements like grids and stuff, Magento Page Builder, in our experience, works really, really well. We've used it across multiple projects now. But for those clients that need a little bit more, then yeah, maybe look at a third-party solution like Storyblock, because if it integrates seamlessly with Hyvä already, then yeah, why not use that?
Yeah, I saw Javier waving on the chat, so he's present as well.
Right.
Shout out. I'm probably gonna pronounce this name wrong. Job or Job, I don't know. Which third-party extensions did you use, and were there compatibility issues using them with Hyvä? I think you mentioned a few already.
Yeah, so we converted the Mag Plaza Instagram feed extension, so that's now in the compatibility library, and we also converted the MagWorks improved layout navigation. That's now in the library. The other 10 extensions that were in the project were all back-end focused extensions. Automated category assignation, automatic product relationships, all those type of extensions that didn't impact the front end. We also converted the Facebook Pixel extension. That was converted, and we also converted the Welt Pixel Google Tag Manager extension as well. We haven't put those on the compatibility library yet, but those will be coming soon. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to check which of the extensions you actually need to keep supporting and continue in the project. Okay, those were the ones pre-selected, but I think we still have some minutes left. Anyone else want to post their questions? Be quick, move over to the questions tab, and there is something else coming from Daniel Bello. What type of products did mostly the clients had? Did you face issues with product types such as downloadable or virtual products?
The client only really used simple products and I think configurable products, but they weren't using swatches. It was more sizes. We didn't really find any issues with those. They all worked pretty well. I mean, I know we touched in the concerns that we was concerned with bugs. We found a few, but if you reach out in the Slack channel, there's an abundance of people willing to help. And that's another great thing about Hoover, I think, is that now we've got this community. If we all help each other, then it's going to make life easier for all of us, I think, and improve the product at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, I think looking at the Hoover Slack, it sometimes seems like you're going back in time to the Mage chat some years back.
Definitely.
So whenever you post a question, there are 2 or 3 people chiming in with answers and really helping you debug stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I try and chime in every now and again and help out where I can as well. So
yeah, you're already sharing the compatibility modules, so you're good.
No, listen, I hope everyone follows suit with that as well. The more we all share, the easier it's going to be for all of us. So yeah, hopefully everyone else takes the same strategy on that.
Okay, Sergey, I don't know if I pronounced it correct, would like to know if you could please show him later how the site looks on mobile devices. I think you showed us some during the presentation already, right?
Yeah, I can show him later how it looks, no worries. Yeah, it's pretty much dev complete. There's a few little niggly issues with it, but it's pretty much dev complete. So yeah, I tell him I can show him that, no worries.
All right. So I may just want to connect later on Hopin or with all the other communication channels you mentioned, like your LinkedIn, your Twitter.
Yeah, just reach out on anything, or even Slack. He's on Slack. Just tell him to reach out on Slack, and I can do a screen share with him, no problem.
Yeah, great. All right. Ina, be quick if we have any other questions for Ryan. Or Andrea. It's like I'm in a TV studio almost, and have people talking to me from all sides. Okay. All right. Otherwise, I would say thank you very much for your talk.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed it.
I'm pretty sure they did. I saw some comments in the chat. Yes, you're good.
Thank you.
All right.
So do I press the leave button now? Is that how I
yes, you're free to leave.
Good stuff. See you later.
See you later. All right. So this was the first one. And next up, we have the second talk coming up. I have a ping from a different side. So, okay, next up is John. John, if you would like to join me on stage here, please click there he is. Quick reactions. Okay, something about John. As you see, Magento everywhere, Mage Titans everywhere. And you are really loyal to your topic. Like, I think your first public Magento event talk was about Bluefoot CMS.
Yeah, I feel a bit like an actor when they get pigeonholed into doing certain roles. Yeah, I'm doing yet another talk about content management systems somehow.
Yeah. So we can at least assume that you know a lot about it. That's good. Yeah. Oh, look, it's even Dave here. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Dave.
All right. John, and I know I've checked out today that you're actually from an area which has the first iron bridge of the world.
Correct, yeah.
And I was there lots of years ago. Okay. Yeah, I think it's time for you to share your screen if you want. And
yeah, no problem.
I'm sure people are already excited to see how you made Bluefoot CMS, page builder and Hyvä compatible.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay.
Okay,
Sonja.
Then I hand over to
Cheers. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm going to be looking at Hyvä and Page Builder. So Page Builder, if you're not aware, is the default content management system that comes with Magento Commerce, or Adobe Commerce as it's now has to be called. Yeah, we'll run through that. So first off, just a little bit about me. I'll keep this brief. I've been doing Magento for far too long. My day-to-day is kind of a solution architect type role. I like helping merchants and devs get more from Magento too. I do have a bit of an orange obsession, as you can see, with all the bits and pieces that I have. And I do tend to like collecting badges, and I've not updated mine like Ryan did. Never mind, to the new Adobe ones. Okay, so yeah, we're going to be looking at Page Builder. We're going to be looking at the challenge with the compatibility with Hyvä, the different options that I looked at before building something, and then we'll look at what I actually built. We'll run through the solution, and finally there'll be a little bit of stuff at the end in terms of how you can go about using it in your project, how you can make your own, if you've done your own Page Builder extensions, for example, how you can make those compatible and that kind of thing. Okay, so why Hyvä? I don't think I really need to spend much time on this slide. I think Ryan did a great job. I'd just give him a shout out as well. He mentioned this is his first talk. I think he did a great job, so just a little shout out to him. So yeah, why Hyvä? Kind of the same journey as Ryan. I joined ReactorCon last year, and it immediately kind of resonated with me, and I was really excited. But then, kind of from my point of view, the first thing that kind of dawned on me is at Fisheye, we do a lot of Magento Commerce or Adobe Commerce. So for new site builds, that is, a lot of our business is actually supporting existing merchants, and they might be on open source, they might be on Commerce. But when we do new projects, which we don't do a great deal of, we do maybe 4 a year at most normally. They're normally on Magento Commerce. So my initial thought was, what about Page Builder? And that's kind of where this came in. So yeah, what is Page Builder if you don't know? So like I said, it's a CMS editor. It's drag and drop. It is a page builder, as the name suggests, and it has lots of content types. I am going to try and switch to another screen. So this is going to be part presentation, part demo, a bit like Ryan. So we'll see how we get on. That's the wrong screen. So here's an example of Page Builder. I'm just going to go to a very simple page here. So if I just close that a second. This is just CMS page in the Magento admin panel. Because we're on Magento Commerce, the default WYSIWYG has been replaced. We've got this Page Builder section, and when we try and edit it, we then get this nice full screen editor. So it's a really nice experience for the merchant. You can drag in all sorts of things. So I can drag in new rows. You can drag that in properly. Drag a new row. We can do special like column layouts. If we want to do like complex grid layouts, we can just keep adding more columns in. You can see all the different bits and pieces here. Can drag them all out and all sorts, and then we've got simple content like text, heading. We've got buttons, just a simple divider. We can have HTML code section if you want to put something a little bit more custom in, and we've got media, so images, videos, and you've got all the kind of things that you'd normally expect to see in a CMS system. We've got banners, sliders, and Google Maps. So yeah, if we drag in something like a banner, I'm not going to go through this in too much detail now, but yeah, we've got a banner in. We can then add images, or we can go into the settings, and there's a lot of controls in all of these different things. It's very thorough, very kind of feature rich, if you like. So there's all these different options you can see for banners and all sorts of different things we can put in. So yeah, and then finally there's this bit at the bottom content, so we can add in additional CMS blocks. So whether you're on a CMS page or a block in the first place, you can then add in like child blocks, if you like, or what another feature of Commerce called dynamic blocks. So that this works with the customer segmentation, where you can have different content displaying to different customers on the storefront based on segments they've been put in. So those are rules that you can create. And then finally, one of the key kind of CMS content types is product lists. So we can add in product lists, and they can be in a carousel or just in a standard kind of grid format. So that's a little tour of Page Builder for those that don't know. Just jump back to the slides then. So yeah, that's Page Builder. So then the next question would be, why Page Builder? So I answered that from a Fisheye point of view, in that we do a lot of Magento Commerce. And I've just outlined that it's got powerful capabilities, as you can maybe see from that rough overview. It does have a really good user experience from a merchant point of view. It is really nice to work with. It's obviously integrated directly into the admin panel. So you don't have to manage your content anywhere else. You can manage your content in the same place that you manage your products and your orders and your categories and all that sort of stuff. And the other key thing really is, whilst there are other great alternative CMSs out there, if a merchant's paid for a commerce license, then they're going to expect this to work. Is the kind of long and short of it, it needs to work. So that's why I started looking at this. And then just a quick shout out for other CMSs as well. So there are great alternatives. Ryan mentioned a few. So Storyblock is one that Javier's been working on at Media Lounge. There's a Prismic integration that Peter Yap and Algentos have been working on. And then there's the Maison Page Builder, which I think Ryan and Foundation Commerce have been working on. But equally, I think Intergenet have done some stuff with that too. Those are all open source and support Hyvä, so you don't need commerce for those. So those might be good alternatives if you need something. Okay then, so what is Page Builder for Hyvä? Basically, as Ryan talked about in his talk, is a compatibility module. So it's just another module that essentially replaces the JavaScript and the CSS, because we no longer have less, and we no longer have require.js or jQuery. It provides support for all the Page Builder content types I've just shown you in the admin panel there, and it retains the performance benefits of Hyvä. There are a couple of caveats I'll come to later. So here's a little example of it. I'll actually just switch back to another screen again. So this is a little bit more of a more complex example. So this is the admin view of it. You can see here. So we've got a slider at the top with an auto playing banners. We've got product lists. We've got two smaller banners. We've got some tabs. Got some buttons. We've got a video. I thought I'd put a Magento mobile video on. Go a bit old school for people that remember that. And then we've got Google Maps as well. So if we have a look at that on the front end. Yeah, here we go. So we've got auto playing sliders. We've got controls. These controls are the same as the ones that Willem and others working on the core kind of Hyvä code base use. I'm reusing components there so that they're in line with what's already there. We've got our product list that we can scroll through and other bits and pieces. And we've got our banners with these kind of overlay effects that you can add in. We've got our tabs with our Hyvä logo, and we've got some buttons here. And again, we've got our lovely Magento mobile video. That's a parallax video in the background there. And then finally, we've got Google Maps. Obviously, I'm using a development key for my Google Maps. Obviously, put a proper production key, you won't get that horrible message in this development thing in. But yeah, we've got Google Maps fully working with a couple of pins in the map there. So there's the fisheye office in Shrewsbury, not far from Ironbridge, as Sonja mentioned. And then obviously, I've just put Intergenet in here as well, over in Germany. So that is a rough overview of kind of the key content types on the page. Okay, so let's get back to the slides again. So that's what it looks like. That's what it does. But first off, before I go through how I made this compatible with Hyvä, kind of need to give you a whistle-stop tour of how Page Builder works from a template rendering point of view. So first off, content is rendered using something called master templates, and these are knockout templates, much like the ones you'd find in the checkout or other places on the standard Luma front end. And they are rendered when you save the Page Builder content in the admin. So when you're saving your CMS page or your block, or potentially even a product attribute, because you can have Page Builder content areas and product attributes as well. And this all happens in the admin scope. And when that content, that master template is created, so it takes the content that the admin user puts in, it applies it to this template, and then it outputs raw HTML. And that raw HTML is stored in the database, as any content would be on like Magento open source, just using the default wizard. You're just saving raw HTML into the database. So I just skip back through that kind of a bit more slowly. So example, we're going to add a H2 element on the page. We just called it some heading. We're just going to go with one very, very simple content type now. So this is the master template, and you can see here it's in the admin scope of the Page Builder module. It's content type heading, and this is its master template. So you can see there's a lot of knockout bindings here. There's one for each of the heading types, and there's an if statement on each one, so to match which heading type has been selected by the admin user, basically. So that then, like I say, gets rendered when you save the page or the block, and that gets put into the database. And that's kind of the output that you'll see for this example. So we've got a H2. You see it's got this data attribute, data content type. These are quite important when it comes to Page Builder. So these are on all the key content type elements, and they help us understand as developers, but also as as the kind of the inner workings of page builder, which content types are being used in certain places. So yeah, I won't go into detail on the data appearance or data element. They're more page builder specific and not really relevant for right now. But you can see we've got our sum heading as the actual main text within the element, and then we've got this data PB style attribute as well. This is for the inline styles that can be used. So I'll just kind of show this really quickly. Let's go back to a really simple example. So I just go to our heading and we see, yeah, we've got so we've got our heading type, we've got our text, and then yeah, we've got all these controls. These are standard across almost every single content type, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're on every single one, and they're always kind of the same. So you can set alignments, we can set borders, we can add custom CSS classes, and we can add margins and paddings and other bits and pieces. So that gets saved as inline styles basically, and the this string here, this randomized string, is used to match it. So I will show you how that works in just a second. Other kind of key thing to note though is, as well as these master templates I just shown you, there's also preview templates, and the preview templates are what I use to actually preview the content back to the admin user. So this is, if I just close this again, this is an admin preview. So this here, it's an admin preview template, and you'll notice if I skip to the next slide, we've got things like data bind live edit in here. So this is these heading templates, for example, have live editability, so I can actually live edit this one without most other content types. You have to actually go into this little cog here and go to the settings. This one has live editability, so I can change it in line without actually going into the settings. And the admin preview templates are important. One, because they show a preview to the admin user, but equally they are created after they're recreated. If you've got content that's saved on the page or block already, it has to be reconverted from the master storage format in the database. It has to be reconverted back into this preview template. So again, this is why these master templates and preview templates are so important. So there's that example of that. And then finally, the storefront output, as I was just coming to. So it's raw HTML stored in the database. It's output just as any HTML content that you'd have in the default WYSIWYG in open source. And yeah, the CSS is achieved via the inline styles and also via less. If I just jump back to, so this is the actual output of this page. Obviously, a very basic page. I've literally just put a heading in. If we just inspect that element, we can see here. So we've got, in this case, the string is here,
John,
but you can also.
Can you zoom in there?
I can try to, yeah. Is that any better?
Yes, yep. And a tip for all the attendees and the audience, if you minimize the right side of your screen, so remove the chat, then you see, I think, maybe a bit more of it as well.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Right. Okay. So yeah. So we've got this string here, the data PB style, and this you'll see just above our actual content here. We've got a style element. So we can see we've got our content type of heading here, which is actually inside a row. So everything needs to be inside a row or a column or a tab or something that's a container of some sort. Yeah, every page builder app has some styles at the top. As you can see, we've got inline styles with the matching string that matches here. So we're applying, all I've set in the admin was it needs to be center aligned. So it's got the inline styles here. So they actually work straight out of the box. There's nothing that needs to be done to make those work with Hoover, apart from the only thing that was missing is adding this HTML body ID back to the body element. Other than that, they work as is. Okay, so that's the storefront output. The only other bit on top of that for more complex items is the JavaScript widgets. So these are for all the dynamic elements. So these are for your carousels, product carousels, sliders, maps, tabs, the parallax effect I showed you. And the default ones that are written in require.js and jQuery are used both within the admin and front end scope of the site. So they're actually in the base scope. So they provide the dynamic elements actually when you're previewing in the admin as well as when you're looking at it on the storefront. Okay, so oh, sorry, and this is just a very simple example of a require.js component. This is for the banner, and the banner allows you to do show on hover effects and video background. So it's got a little bit of a small amount of JavaScript there. It's actually including more dependencies to something too, but that's just a quick example. So that's kind of roughly how Page Builder works in a nutshell. So let's have a quick look at the different solution options that I kind of went through when looking at how to make this compatible with Hyvä in terms of recreating this dynamic functionality and the CSS as well. So there are three key ways of doing it that came to me. First one was to modify the master knockout templates that we looked at. I'll come on to these in more detail in a second. The second one was to kind of ignore the master template output and basically build a data object, such as a JSON object, and re-implement all the markup using that data object as the kind of source for it. And finally, the last option was to just live with the existing markup, which is how Luma works, and just recreate the JavaScript widgets and port the CSS we needed. So without any suspense, I went for the third option, but I'll run through all the options in a little bit more detail now. So first one, modifying the master template. So this would allow us to have full control over the markup, but we would have to work with those knockout templates. And if you don't knock out, it's not too bad to work with some of it, but when I say it's painful to work with, it's definitely painful to work with if you're going to try and do knockout to then add Alpine bindings to markup and add Tailwind in line with it. It's just a little bit confusing and a little bit, yeah, just not pretty, that's for sure. Obviously, and the other thing with the master templates is they're done in the admin scope, as I mentioned, so you can't alter them per scope. If you've got a multi-store Magento site, you can only, if you put Tailwind CSS classes in that master template, you can't alter them for each storefront, so that's no good really. And then finally, in the main issue, the main reason why not to go with this approach is this is the storage format in the database, and that's what I was talking about, the preview templates and the reconverting in and out of the database to be able to edit and update the content. If we go messing about with these master storage templates, we can break content if we change it and we deploy updates to the site. So basically, overriding the master templates is a very bad idea for maintainability and upgradability. So that one was off the cards. Second one is to rebuild using the data object. So again, this allows us to have complete control over the markup. We can make full use of Alpine.js and Tailwind CSS and do it per store. We wouldn't have to use knockout. And if you're interested, this is actually how Page Builder works for PWA Studio. They build a data object from the data that's in the database. They convert that into essentially React components and the props to feed into those React components, the data for each of the elements, and then they render that within the PWA Studio application. So it is a nice approach. So it sounds great. However, there's a lot of content, a lot of templates, and a lot of markup to recreate. And not to mention all the custom properties you can add. So as I kind of showed a minute ago, you've got all this section, and if we look at a banner, I had to zoom out to fit this on one screen, I had to zoom out quite far. So there's a lot of things to recreate for a lot of different content types. And this is not me knocking Adobe particularly, this is just me, an observation that it took around 6 months to build the initial PWA Studio support. I'm just one person looking at this in my spare time. I didn't have time to do this. It's something that I'd love to see happen in future, but right now it just wasn't feasible. Finally, recreating the JavaScript widgets and the CSS. Like I said, we'd have no control over the markup, we'd have to use the existing, but again, this is how it works in Luma. Right now, if you're using Page Builder in Luma, you don't have control over the markup. You have control over the styles and you have control over the JavaScript widgets if you wish to modify them. So that means we've got no real way to add Alpine.js or Tailwind CSS into the markup at source. We need to use plain JavaScript to re-implement the dynamic elements, and we can use the post CSS files that come with the Tailwind theme. So along with obviously writing utility classes in all your templates, there is actually a selection of CSS files that make up the kind of the base of the Tailwind theme, and you can add your own custom CSS files in. So that's what I use to do this, and we use the Tailwind apply directive, which means we can use utility classes still, and we're just applying them to other classes or elements within our markup. And again, the JavaScript and the CSS that we're using for this solution only affects the front end, so it doesn't affect the admin previews, and it can vary per storefront if we needed. And after working out which solution to go with, which if I'm honest probably took me a a few weeks at least, or maybe even a couple of months, because I was, like I said, doing this at a very small amount of time. Actually coding this thing, once I decided what I was going to do, didn't take me more than a few weeks to build. And again, I was probably only doing 6 to 8 hours a week in my spare time at tops. There's probably 40, 50 hours max, probably actual coding to get this thing done. Okay, so I think I've probably covered all of those. Like I said, option 2 would be the best long-term solution and give a better developing experience. We'd have more to maintain. So my focus was just getting something working now. So as I mentioned at the start, I was excited by Hyvä. We need to do commerce projects, so I wanted something that we could use now. So let's have a little look at the kind of final solution. So it's in a dedicated module. It's a compatibility module. It recreates all the widget output, as I said. It also replaces some external libraries, which I'll come on to in a minute. We ported all the CSS, all the default less files that were in Page Builder for Luma. They're all split by content type in separate less files. I've been through every single one of those files and ported all the CSS across, converting it to Tailwind using the apply directive in as many places as possible. We've also integrated Hoover's custom product list template. So whilst everything else is done by master templates and knockout, product lists still use PHTML template files that get rendered separately. So we were able to use template files there. So we was actually able to use Alpine. Well, I didn't really need any Alpine, but I was able to use Tailwind classes directly in those templates, which is great. And we actually used the per item template that Willem's already built without having to do any additional work. So that just basically, as soon as that was hooked up, that worked straight away, which was great. It saved me a lot of time. There are a few minor features which currently are disabled and may or may not surface in future, and I'll come on to those in a bit. First though, the bulk of this work was recreating the JavaScript widgets, but actually many of the types don't need them at all and don't use them. So without doing anything, a lot of page builder content works straight away by replacing a few bits of CSS. So that includes just all the default kind of elements like headings, text, HTML areas, images and videos, and pulling through other CMS blocks. The columns as well didn't really need any customization other than a bit of CSS to recreate their responsiveness and their kind of their grid and flex type layouts. Excuse me. Okay then. So in terms of widgets, we'll look at those in a bit more detail now. All the widgets that I've recreated follow a similar pattern. So I'm going to run through the kind of how they work generically, and then we'll look at the different widgets that are supported. Essentially, the rough outline is they work by finding matching elements in the DOM, so that data content type attribute that I mentioned earlier. There's a few external libraries which have been ported or replaced with more lightweight and performant alternatives. So there's no make sure that there's no jQuery needed and that kind of thing. And all the aim was to have as minimal footprint as possible. So we've got just keeping the plus points of Hyvä in terms of the performance scores and core web vitals as much as we can. I've just put a little 2 eyes looking at Google Maps there, because sadly, as soon as you add Google Maps to a page, there's not much you can do about the performance, but again, I'll show that in a minute. So recreating widgets then. So this first started essentially by, I won't show this bit on screen, but we removed all the output of widgets from Luma, just by a couple of lines of layout XML, just finding the block and removing it. And then I've added all of these different widgets that you can see here. So there are 6 in total. They've all been added to before body end. There's no need for them to be higher up the page. They're just standalone bits of JavaScript that look for other elements on the page, so they don't need to load until right at the end. So that's those added. And then next, within each of these template files, each one contains a JavaScript function, which essentially recreates the functionality. There might be 1 or more functions in each one. This one is for the buttons. So with the buttons, there is the ability. Let me just find the right page. Yeah, with the buttons, there is the ability for the admin user to select whether they want all the buttons to be the same width or not. It's just a toggle in the admin panel here. Yeah, all buttons are the same size, yes or no. So if we tick yes on that, then we need to make them the same size as they are here, essentially. So essentially all this method's doing is just completely ported from the require.js component. It's just looping through the buttons, finding the button finding the button widths of all buttons, and whichever is the longest is the min width for all the other buttons. Nothing overly taxing. So that's a function. You can see the parameter up here, we're passing buttons. So this is going to be the elements. That's kind of our next step, is we're triggering these functions on events. So normally almost all of them, I think all five of them, just one of them doesn't use DOM content loader, does its event listener to wait until we've got the content on the page. And then once the content's loaded, we're essentially just using document.query selector all to find the data content types. And in this case, with the buttons, we're also looking for ones where they've got the data same width set to true. So that's that setting I just showed you. And essentially, for all matching elements, we just loop through them and we pass through pass each element through to the functions. And that's the basic premise. The only other difference is if we need an external library. So again, this is mostly just borrowing on techniques that are already in the default Hyvä code base. The concept of don't load things unless you need it in Hyvä to keep things as minimal as possible. If we've got an external script, we're not loading it on the page unless a matching page builder element exists. So in this case, this is the carousel. So you can see we're looking for product content types that have an appearance of carousel, and we're also looking for sliders. So if we find any matching elements, then we're going to programmatically create this script and include it in the head of the page. So for the carousel, we're using something called glider, which I'll come on to in a minute. But essentially loading glider, and then when glider is eventually loaded, then we'll initialize our carousels. And then finally, and I'll give a shout out to Dan, who's our head of development at Fisheye, for suggesting this. All of these functions are then wrapped in a self-invoking function to avoid polluting the global namespace, so to avoid any conflict. So these functions don't need to be called anywhere else. They just need to run on the page if matching and find matching elements. So yeah, they're in self-invoking functions, so they're not polluting the namespace. And that's essentially how the widgets work. And as I kind of showed you the buttons one in a little bit more detail there, we've also got a carousel, a map with the parallax, which you can apply to rows and banners and sliders, the show on hover, and the tabs as well. I'll just run through these in a little bit more detail. So buttons, I think I've already explained in terms of you can equalize the width, the tabs. These are just simple tabbed areas. These are actually the only area on the site where I have actually applied Alpine attributes to the markup. So it's not pretty, but it does work, and it means I don't have to write the tab functionality in plain JavaScript. It just didn't really seem worthwhile. The show on hover recreates the ability for banners and slides to have these overlays. So again, if I just jump back onto our front end output, so these are the overlays. So this one here is set to have an overlay. So it's got a colored gradient as well as the button only appearing on hover. So that's that one. Yeah, should have just, don't really feel like I need to demo how tabs work, but just in case, there we go. And then parallax. So this is as I showed you earlier, this is for video or image background. So again, this is the one here. You can see it's kind of moving up and down as we scroll. Nice kind of parallax motion. This uses default page builder in Luma uses the Jaralax library, which I continue to use, again, loaded only when needed. It doesn't have any dependencies and it is fairly lightweight, so there's no issues reusing it. It didn't really feel worth trying to rebuild parallax functionality when something that was suitable already existed. Okay, and the Google Maps obviously re-implements the Maps functionality. As I demoed it to you a short while ago, it allows you to add multiple markers with text content to a defined area. So that's, again, fairly straightforward. And the most complex one, or the one that took probably the most amount of time because there's lots of different settings, was a carousel. It's easy to use for sliders and product lists, so you can scroll and swipe through them as I showed you earlier. And in the admin, you can choose whether you want to show dots or arrows or have them autoplay like I've got in the example. The Slick library was removed because it requires jQuery, and with the kind of Hyvä concepts in mind, it is a little bit bloated. I settled on something called glider.js, which is not as well known as things such as like Swiper that Ryan mentioned earlier, but glider is very small. It's less than 3 kilobytes when zipped up. Has no dependencies, and it actually claims to not be a carousel. It's a carousel alternative. It does very little. So I actually had to rebuild some of the functionality on top, such as the autoplay, so the auto looping through. All the dots and arrows are reused again from Willem's original work on Hyvä, so trying to keep it consistent with those from the kind of default product slider that Willem built. And they've been split out to separate dedicated templates so they can share between the products and the slider. The only thing that's really been dropped, and this is mostly due to Glider.js's limitations, again, because it's so basic, is the fade animation and the continuous scrolling of slides and product carousels have been dropped right now. I've not had a chance to rebuild them. Fade probably isn't achievable with Glider.js particularly easily. It's not really what it's for. And those controls have been removed from the admin panel in the module at the moment. Okay, so that's the widgets. Next is the CSS. Not really too much to say here. There's obviously, like I mentioned, a lot of less files, as you can see on the right hand side here, a lot of less files that are in the default page builder output, split by content type. I ported them all to a single post CSS file, and then you just need to include them in the Hyvä theme yourself, essentially. And I mentioned the inline styles kind of support was already re-added. So quick look at this file then. It's split by content type, as kind of matching the admin panel. So we've got elements, text, etc. here. We're using Tailwind's apply directive to use Tailwind utility classes where we can. So we're making use of things like using the default breakpoints rather than having to manually write media queries. And again, we got the screen one down here as well. And then, yeah, on a few cases, sadly, there wasn't a utility class that mapped, so I had to use the kind of the default CSS. Just brought that completely straight over from the last files without any modification. Product lists I touched on. We've used Willem's templates here. Sadly, I had to use a plugin to override the templates because they're actually set in a JavaScript file, but I won't go into detail on that. But they've been output and they will overwrite on a Hyvä-based theme, and they'll change to make use of the default Hyvä templates instead. So I've talked a lot about how and why and what. Let's have a quick run through performance. So Hyvä versus Luma in terms of page builder, how does it stack up? So I've done a very basic lighthouse test just on the performance score. I've ignored all the other ones for now because they're not really relevant for what I'm trying to talk about. So same install, same CMS page, one storefront running Luma, one running Hyvä, and ran using the mobile profile. So that's the Luma score, 28. Didn't like that very much, as you can see. And this is the Hyvä score, 98. So everything's back down. We've got no layout shifts or anything like that. Nice performant and very snappy. Considerations, as I mentioned earlier, Google Maps videos and kind of parallax video backgrounds. If you can avoid using these on your main pages or try and make sure your merchants don't use them on these pages, I would highly recommend it. You don't need a Google Map on your homepage. You don't need a Google Map on your category landing pages. Put it on your contact page, put it on your About Us page. Just don't put it on key pages where you're trying to convert sales. So as an example, you can do all the great things in the world with Hyvä, stick on a parallax video and stick in a Google Map, and the performance goes down to 59. I'm sure there are things that can be done about it, but with more time, but it's just not worth it, essentially, is the point I'm getting. Keep it to where you realistically need it. Couple of things that I'd like to look at doing in future: lazy loading, so adding the native lazy loading tag to images, and like I just mentioned with videos, maybe looking at a way of only loading the videos when users interact with them, like using a placeholder image until you actually interact with the video, would be more suitable. So quickly, because I'm probably aware I'm probably going a little bit over time. If you want to add this to your theme, it's pretty straightforward. There's a README on the module page in GitLab, but essentially I'll try and do this in PHP Storm quickly. The key thing is obviously install it via Composer as you would normally, and then there's a CSS file that essentially you need to copy into your Hyvä theme. So you need to copy this file out. Scroll all the way down to my Hyvä theme. I put it in the components. Where is it? Put it in the components here, and then essentially all you realistically need to do is open this Tailwind source file. You include it, and we make sure we include it after the ignore purging is done, because we don't know which templates are going to be on which pages or used across the site. We just need all these styles in on all pages. There's not that much styles there. It's not going to add that much of a performance impact. So it's included in all pages. And then finally in the config file, We just need to add our page builder PHP template files to the purge list. Like I say, all of this is in the README, so it's not something that you need to memorize. It's all there, ready for you to run, and then obviously just need to recompile your styles once you've done that. But otherwise, it should just work out of the box. And finally, quickly, a couple of other little bits and pieces. This actually needs merging and releasing, but this is now done. We've got we're using Hyvä prefix layout handles for adding the widgets, so they won't apply on Luma-based themes. And there's also an is Hyvä check on those template overrides for the product list. So you can coexist Hyvä and Luma together on a. You need to. I think we've got an example of that here. So at the top, I've got store default here. This is my Hyvä theme. Here's my Luma theme with the same content in as before. Yeah, they both work coinciding with one another quite happily. If you want to migrate from Luma, same applies, but any custom CSS that you had in your old theme would obviously need to be ported, and the same applies for any classes that you put in the admin panel. So when I say classes in the admin panel, that's these kind of bits and pieces. If you put any custom classes in this section at the bottom, the classes applied to the markup, but if those classes, maybe you put like a primary class to do something like a primary button in the Luma theme, those kind of things you'd need to port across. Again, they're not going to be there. You'll have to redo them yourself. Very quickly, custom content types. So if you've built your own page builder module that adds a custom content type, so at Fisher, we've got a handful of these. We've got one that adds an accordion, for example, one that adds a modal, and we've got, I'm trying to think what other ones we've got. My mind's going blank, but yeah, if you've got a custom content type, adding support, again, is as simple as what I've just shown in terms of you just need to replace any JavaScript, any of the front end widget output and the CSS. Other than that, that's all you need to do. And again, you can do that in the original module using Hyvä prefix layouts, or if you want to, you can use a separate module and that will work just as well. And that is it. So just to recap, this module is available as part of Hyvä with a license. It is Hyvä's, if you like, something I built in my spare time. It was originally, Fisheye namespaced. It is now Hyvä namespaced. It is Hyvä's. It is for the community. It's there to share for everyone to use. Obviously, you need a commerce license. As I noted, the README contains all the install instructions. The list of missing features is also a Google sheet. This link, I'll share the link to these slides shortly. There's a feature matrix as well that shows all the different things that are supported and aren't. If you want to add any contributions or whatever, then you're more than welcome to get involved. Yeah, I've seen a couple of other people have asked me about getting this installed on their project. So it looks like a few people are already working with this on their projects, and we'll be launching a few of our own later this year too. Finally, a couple of bits of thanks. Obviously, Willem and Internet, for overall support and encouragement whilst I was doing this. I had lots of chats with Willem over the Christmas period and in the new year. I want to thank the team at Fisheye for giving me a very thorough code review, especially Dan. And lastly, Dave, who we mentioned earlier, the original kind of lead page builder dev. I know he's now working or leading the PWA studio efforts, but thanks to him for pointing me in the right direction with replacing the widgets. And that is it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, John. This was really cool. I think the first part was for many more like a recap of how to work with Page Builder, understanding it. But then afterwards, the questions came in, and I will now read out a few of them to you. So Andreas from our team actually has two questions. The first one is, I think you touched on that as well in your presentation. Do you support all Page Builder elements, all of the properties and every single setting, or are there exceptions? I think you mentioned a few.
Yeah, I'd say at least 95, probably 90, 98, 99%. Yeah, there are a few things that are not supported, like I said. So there's the fade and the continuous looping on the slot on the carousels. I'm trying to think what else isn't supported. I haven't quite got the video parallax backgrounds are not working within sliders, but if I'm honest, if I ever catch a merchant trying to put a video slider inside video background inside a slider, I'm going to tell them to stop pretty quickly. So that doesn't work at the moment. Other than that, everything's supported. The only other bits that aren't technically supported, so if you're using commerce, things like .digital and Adobe's product recommendations, they also have page builder content types that they're not supported yet, but I don't foresee them needing a great deal of work, but I've not had a use case for doing those yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the second question from Andreas was, how much effort will it be to make existing custom page builder elements compatible with Hyvä? Is there any documentation on how to do that?
So I guess as it stands, the documentation is this slide deck. It's not really any formal documentation, but it's as I've kind of just shown it, it's recreating the JavaScript widgets and it's porting the CSS. Depending on the complexity of the content type, you could be looking at half an hour up to a day or two. But I think in most cases you probably wouldn't need more than a couple of hours to get something ported across.
Mm-hmm. And then Carlos asked, does the page builder compatibility support the use of the new viewport breakpoint mobile styling feature that was added in Magento Commerce 242?
Yes, so this is this functionality here. So if you click on mobile, there are a few different settings. There's only a few things change realistically from memory at the mobile breakpoint. I'll be honest, I haven't tested them all thoroughly in detail, but yes, because they're inline styles, for the most part, all the things I've tried work.
Okay, great. Lucas has the question, what will happen once Adobe drops Luma? Will that need a complete refactor of Hyvä integration? And will Page Builder end up into GraphQL outputting content?
So obviously, I've already replaced what Luma did. So in terms of working with Hyvä, if Adobe decide to drop Luma, then there's no real issue because we've already replaced what was Luma specific anyway. In terms of GraphQL output, there's probably, I don't know how separated the work that Adobe have done with PWA Studio to kind of transition data out of the database and then convert it into React components, whether that can kind of be reused or separated out. When you say GraphQL at the moment, literally we're talking about getting content from a page or a CMS block, so you can do that via GraphQL already. Page Builder is, at the end of the day, is just raw HTML once it's compiled, if you like, once it's rendered. So yeah, kind of an open-ended answer, I appreciate, but yes, you can work with GraphQL with it if you want to, but you'll still get the same output out. You'd have to look at what Adobe have done with PWA Studio and look at something similar, but that would be that kind of more longer-term solution I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And now here's a question from Ina, project manager as always, asking about the process. What was your process making the page builder compatible? Did you have an overview of all the to-dos and elements to make compatible right away? Or was it more like agile, seeing what needs to be done along the way?
It was very, very ad hoc, me doing it in my spare time, but I basically just used a Google Sheet. If you can see, a lot of these started out as red crosses. They've now changed to green crosses, so you can see things such as, if I scroll down to the bottom, .digital hasn't been done, for example, but yeah, I just use this Google Sheet. I just put a Google Sheet together, put all the content types in, and work my way through in my own personal priority order.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. And also, I saw that you had the URL of your slides already on the last slide.
Oh, yeah. Click the link again. Yeah, I can share that.
Yeah, because with so much in-depth information, I think there are a few people who want to read up on it afterwards, and that's great if you have the slide.
Yeah, I'll post that. I'll paste that in here. I'll put it on Twitter as well and stuff later, but yeah, I'll put that in. Okay,
and that was it. No more questions for you, I think. Just checking this. Yeah. Just shout out from the audience. Really nice, thank you.
Great stuff, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I think this is just something that really many people have been waiting for, to see Page Builder and Hyvä. And yeah, looking at the performance, great. Okay, so next in our schedule is our general Q&A. So John, you're free to leave if you want.
Yeah, I'll run away and let Willem answer all the difficult questions. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Cheers.
Cheers. Okay. Willem, are you ready to join me here? Oh, he needs 1 more minute. That's good because I have a tiny bit of a disclaimer for you to see. As you see on top of the screen I share, there's the recording lamp on. So this session is recorded, which means that if you want to use the open mic in the Q&A and want to share your video and audio to ask a question, then that means that you agree to being recorded and also that this may be published on the YouTube channel of Hyvä Themes. If you would rather not be recorded, then you can use the questions tab or go to Slido itself. Ina, I think if you can put the URL of this the Slido as well in the chat, that would be great. Or just use the questions tab and upvote questions, put in your own questions. Or if you want to make this the moment to remind your colleagues of our meetup, that would be great as well. Or you could do a shout out on social media with the hashtag Hyvä Meetup. And I think that's all I wanted to say before doing the deep dive into questions. Okay. The team has already...
Take a second and thank all our speakers. I think those sessions were really great. So much information. I'm super happy that it's being recorded because I think some things I even want to see back myself for a second time. So really nice. As I mentioned in the chat, we'll be sharing this video on our YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/Hyvä Themes. And thank you already, Sonja, for this great event.
You're welcome.
Okay, so hit me with those questions.
If you want to have more support, I think you mentioned that this was to be announced as the Hyvä team answering questions. So if you want to bring anyone else in, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, I would start with the first question.
Sure.
That's from Christina. She asks, I have a question from a client regarding extension compatibility. Which vendors at the moment have compatible extensions with Hyvä?
Yeah, so we posted the link. Actually, Vinay just posted the link in the chat, which we'll also put in the YouTube description. We'll link to it. We opened up a module tracker that's public, where any member of Hyvä can go and add a module that they would like to see in Hyvä, or in case of an agency that starts working on a module, they want to share it. They can put it up there as a request, or as I said, to show that you've started working on that. So you can go there now and you can see which modules. It's an issue tracker on GitLab. So if you're familiar with that, you can switch to a board view, and then you get this nice columns where you can see what's requested. I need to do it in, I think, mirrored. So you see, well, on the left hand, you'll see what's requested, and anything hasn't been done with that yet. And then in the first column, you see is accepted. So someone has started working on that then, or has accepted that as a task, and then in progress, and then finished. And then we have a column that says that it's compatible out of the box. And for example, that applies to backend related modules that don't touch anything, like Fuman Christoph did some research which modules of his own already work, and he listed them there. As we mentioned before, some of the checkout modules that are based on the Luma theme can also be implemented on Hyvä without any extra work. So we did some research. We tested a few one-step checkout and ThreadWorks, MST, the one from Daniel Slove. So that's, yeah, the compatible column are the ones that we didn't need to do anything for because, well, reasons I just mentioned.
Okay, so basically both of the right columns, compatible and published, are the ones that are already
in progress.
working.
Yeah. So you see, for example, the Magento page builder. We have some tags. So if you click on the page builder on the right middle by the media launch story block, you just scroll past it.
Can you direct me left, right, top,
yeah, right,
bottom?
right. And then you see the media launch story block, and you can click the green label. Yeah. So now you're in the board, and well, your screen is a bit condensed, but here you can see that the compatible ones already work out of the box, and we have the Magento page builder that we just had this whole presentation about is compatible. And then on the left, you'll see that the Magento one. At IntegerNet, we did a lot of work on the page builder, which will port over to a compatibility module. But also Ryan from the first presentation did some work there, so I guess we can collaborate and share the components that you already made compatible. So that's a bit of a shared effort.
All right. Yeah.
And
so
I didn't mention, I think there's a vote. Sorry, there's a voting mechanism. So as a member of Hyvä, you can put something up there, basically as a request or as a shout out, like has anyone already worked on this and is willing to share it, and then any member can vote on that, and the top ones with the most votes we pick out, and we make, as Team Hyvä, we make an effort of making some of those modules compatible if that's feasible. So we already worked on a few Mirasfit modules and some search modules, yeah, we picked that up as a task. So we kind of do a popularity request.
Popular vote.
Yeah, popular vote, and then we pick some out that we do ourselves.
Okay, great. So long story short, there are no extension providers per se who are compatible, but you have to check per module, and with the board you can already see some data.
Yeah, we're in contact with several module vendors, and it's not immediately that all of them want to make all their modules compatible, because some of them obviously have a lot of them and they need to kind of get a sense of how much requests there are. But they have an active eye on that module tracker, and some extension vendors take it on themselves, like Yayuma, if I say it correctly. They just published their first module that they completely made compatible on their own. And we collaborated with Bolt.com for a full in-context checkout that we worked on together. So yeah, we put a lot of effort on the third-party compatibility modules in the recent 4 weeks, I guess, and it will remain our focus for the next period of time.
Okay. Next question is from Simon. Shout out to Simon. More UK people here. Didn't Magento say they would deprecate the layout XML PHTML files in 2 years? And then will Hyvä grandfather these?
So there's two things. One, deprecating usually doesn't mean that something goes away with Magento, and we have several examples of that. Helpers or the product registry, they are marked deprecated, but they somehow are never refactored or replaced. So first question is, if it's being deprecated in 2 years, what does it mean from there? Secondly, we don't inherit any XML or PHML. So they would be doing us a favor if they remove them from core, because then we didn't need to remove them ourselves before being able to add Hyvä on top of that. So we currently have this reset team that strips out everything that is Luma and then build Hyvä on top of that. So if they remove that, we're one step closer to the core. So that would be nice in itself. If they would go one step further and say we're deprecating the whole system behind that, like rendering the XML layout in total, that would mean that they're at a stage that the backend also would need to be gone, because the backend also depends on that same XML and HTML, and they have a shared base environment where HTML files are combined from backend and frontend. So that's a lot more complicated than you would say at first. So yeah, I wanted to continue that thought, but I know there's another question that I would answer with this. So maybe continue with the next question and I'll get there.
I have to see if I find the question you refer to. The next one I have here is, Ina, is this a sign? I'm getting signs from the team. Yes, okay. There's a question from Arthur, a question actually from their clients. Is there a guarantee that Hyvä will not be closed after 1 year if they will launch a project using it?
Yeah, first of all, there's no many guarantees in life, but there's one thing that I can tell you. Magento has been my life for 10 years. Hyvä has been my life for the past 10 months, 8 months, and it's my entire future at this moment. Hyvä is my full-time day job now. Hyvä is a company in itself that has pledged itself to build a future for Magento as we know and we love it. And that's something that we want to stand for and that we want to build a community for, to carry that into the future beyond deprecation of things or whatever. We are a group of growing people, a real community that's collaborating on things, that has the same drive and motivation, and that's to work with Magento as we know it right now. And that's not a bunch of APIs from Adobe. That's a PHP framework that we know from inside and outside, as I said, that we've been working with for 10 years, and we want to continue with working in the future. And that's something that Hyvä stands for and our partners stand for, and that we want to pick up and set a future for. Because that's what we want to do with our working lives. And we want to enjoy our work, and currently, and well, in the long term, that's going to be this type of Magento. So I can't give you more guarantee than we currently are almost 700 developers, and we just launched 2 months ago. I don't have the impression that we're not here to stay. That's not my intention.
Okay, you see people reacting already. I want to take this moment to remind people that if they want to share audio, video, and ask their questions themselves directly, please feel free to do so. Press the button. Pina has goosebumps already. Okay. I'll continue with the next question from Sunil, asking about any update on the checkout page. I guess they refer to
the React checkout, I think. Yeah. So there has been continuous development on that from our friend Rajiv, who now works on that full time as a courtesy of IntegerNet, because our friends at IntegerNet currently took on the task of finishing the React checkout. There were a few things that weren't fully implemented yet. Currently, we're waiting or we're finishing up the login and more or less the login capability in the checkout, which we built with React with GraphQL, and it had some complications because GraphQL doesn't automatically merge your session with the Luma or Hyvä session. So we're going to fall back to a old school controller for logging in, and then I think we're more or less ready to release the first version in 1 or 2 weeks. So that actually went. So that those last bits went quite fast actually, but it's taken too long, to be honest, and that's because there's just so many things to do. Meantime, yeah, we have so many really good alternatives at this moment. All these alternative Luma checkouts and this fast bolt checkout that we have. And there are some agencies that actively implemented the React checkout. Argentus is one example, and Intergenet is an example that did multiple implementations with the first version. But this rebuilt version will have all standard functionalities built in. So yeah, that's coming up really soon.
Okay, connected to that, question from Maria asking about what is the best practice regarding the styles for the checkout, which does not contain Tailwind. In brackets, visually the checkout should fit to the rest of the store.
Yeah, I understand that. In this case, you're falling back to the Luma-based checkout, which has everything that you might or might not like from Luma. And you need to adjust the styling there. One of the upsides that we've seen is that the Luma checkout page is already a very much stripped version of a Luma theme. You already normally don't have the menu there anymore, and a lot less in the footer because that drives conversion, not too much distraction on the checkout page. So that usually comes down to changing the header styles and the colors and some of the font types. And yeah, that's still a bit of work, but on the plus side, all the payment methods and shipping methods already work out of the box when you use Luma. So you save a bit of time there compared to the React checkout, where you need to use the graphical endpoints to implement payment methods. Yeah, there's a bit of work there, but we're working towards a better future for the checkout as well.
In the meantime, the audience are getting together to create the Hyvä neon lamp, but they need color codes or.
It's all SVGs on hyvä.io, so you can pick the colors straight there.
Yeah, Andreas was just sharing the image file for others to take the color picker and use it. Okay. The question from Phil, he says, I think you have a user voice type function for devs in Slack. And he's asking, can we have access to similar for merchants to make suggestions and vote for futures, please? I guess the module tracker, compatibility tracker is public, so.
Yeah, so we don't use Slack for that. Slack is for support and technical questions. GitLab is where we ask people to put in issues and feature requests of the core product. And then we have the module tracker, which is publicly visible, but you need to be a member of GitLab to be able to put in your own request there. But if you're a merchant that owns a license, just ask me and you get access to GitLab. Usually we offer it, and if a merchant chooses to only give that access to the developers, then the developers only have access, but there's no reason why a merchant wouldn't have access to that. So yeah, that's one thing. We don't have another system in place there than GitLab. And it's kind of intentional for us that we we work with the technical parties directly and ask to do the support with them and get technical questions usually where the developer knows most about the project details and can already answer most of the questions for the merchant themselves. So yeah, we have some support via email from merchants directly, but usually the channels that we have for support are more technically directed. But again, any merchant with a license can also get GitLab access.
Yeah, and I think launch was just 3 months ago, so there's still some to-dos, like building the merchant community around Hyvä.
Yeah, but yeah, in some way, we kind of put the agencies and the freelancers and the developers in the position that they understand the technical side of Hyvä and the benefits. And currently, we kind of rely on them to spread that word towards their clients and the merchants. But yeah, definitely, I think John Hughes mentioned this recently on a podcast with Brent Peterson, that he saw that merchant information was lacking. That's why he wrote a really long and beautiful blog article about Hyvä directed to merchants. We haven't had the time to focus on that yet, but we have some plans to do some general introduction videos also directed to merchants, just to explain what is Hyvä and why would you want it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, with some people leaving here, I guess it's time to admit that we're a bit running late in our schedule. Ina and John have the same thought of sharing the article. We have some more questions, and I think there are more people interested in the questions. If you want to engage more, well, join us here, ask a question here, or there's always networking available. There's a question from Konstantin asking, by my count, it's PWA Studio will be production ready sometime next year, possibly by the second quarter. How do you see Hyvä evolving? PWA theming isn't currently supported.
How do I see PWA Studio evolving in the future?
How do you see Hyvä evolving?
Also, what my long-term ideas of how Hyvä would evolve?
Yeah, I guess it draws something from Hyvä to PWA.
Can I read that? Okay, by my count, will be production ready soon. Q2. How do you see Hyvä evolving? Yeah, there's multiple things in there. I don't think that it's that interesting to have my position on what PWA Studio is or isn't. They say they will be feature complete this year, but it's been said that it has been production ready for 1 or 2 years. So there are shops that are live with it. I think I would really like to see a feature matrix of PWA Studio. I've been looking for it, but it's really hard to find. So since I'm not working with it on a daily, or like I haven't worked with it, I don't know what features are actually in there currently and which aren't. I would love to see that and hold that next to our own feature matrix, where I personally really like that we have this complete overview, because we ticked a lot of those boxes, and we have some people send us emails and ask like, so we have some concerns that not all the features are covered, or it's a downside that not all the features are in there. I think compared to any PWA solution currently out there, we already have more features covered because it was just so much easier to re-implement it based on what Luma already has. So we went really quickly there in the feature completeness. What I have, what my future for Hyvä looks like, ideally, is an ecosystem around it where more extensions are made compatible, but also made specifically for Hyvä. As I've been saying from the first presentation about Hyvä, I have this dream about this UI library where Hyvä, the default Hyvä theme is the base that you install, and if you want to have a different menu, you pick one from our UI library where you have 5 or 10 different menus, and you just replace a HTML file, and you have a different menu. And same goes for a product gallery or any other element of the page. And we built Hyvä for that, to be able to swap components by just replacing HTML files. Theming-wise, it's currently not planned to bring out a lot of different themes that have a completely different look and feel, but it's our idea to make that completely modular, like the Tailwind community offers with all the UI libraries. We want to have the same, but ready-made for Magento. So everything just works with all the PHP codes and view models built in there. That's the dream.
Yeah, I was just thinking of someone else when you said I have a dream. Okay, there's a question connected to that, probably from Lucas. Do you foresee Hyvä becoming the next base theme, which theme vendors use to build their third-party themes on? And is that something that you would like to avoid?
No, I'm open to that, and I'm actually talking with one party who has suggested that, and in that case, it would mean, because Hyvä itself is proprietary code, so it would be based on a commercial product, so that would mean that we need to get an agreement on that it's shared. For example, it would be sold through a marketplace that we offer, and we handle the transaction, but only that. So people will be able to offer their modules or themes based on Hyvä. If anyone is interested in that and has concrete ideas, fill in the contact form on our site and we get talking. Same goes for SaaS solutions. If you're building something like that, we're also talking with some parties that are doing that, and that's equally interesting, I think, for both parties.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have one last question here from Igor. Would it be possible to receive a temporary dev license to give Hyvä a try?
Yeah, we get that question a lot, actually. Our base answer is we offer trial periods for 2 weeks, which allows you to see what works, install it on your shop, and see what it entails to make extensions compatible and everything. And if it's not a fit, you can request a refund. But yeah, that's currently how that works.
Okay. And with that, we covered all questions, I think. For the audience, we also had in the questions tab for Slido another tab that says ideas, where we ask which topics you would like to hear about at the next Hyvä Meetup. And there are some, like just mentioned, the Hyvä Toolbox, something comparable to Alpine Toolbox, where you can share nice snippets and content blocks built with or in Hyvä. And another idea was how to support third-party extensions, so more on compatibility. So these are the issues people see, or the ideas they have for upcoming talks.
I think the third-party extensions is a really nice one to have a talk about the next time, because there's so much information there to share. And we work so much on documentation about how to make modules compatible and everything. I think the other question from Guus was not a suggestion for the meetup, but he interpreted that as an ID box for Hyvä itself. And that Hyvä Toolbox is what we just talked about, which would be the Hyvä UI library. There's one last thing that I want to mention, because we had a win action for someone could win a license, and I'll contact the person. It's Manuel Garcia Solipa. He retweeted our meetup tweet, and I'll offer him a free license.
Congratulations, Manuel. Yeah, he's here.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just.
I hope I pronounce it correctly. Cool, Manuel. Cool.
Okay, I may be gone in a second. My Chrome doesn't respond anymore. I tried to share a screen. Okay. Let me see. I'll be back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we finish this session, or you have something to round up still?
All questions are answered. If there are no questions coming in anymore, then we would move on to the open end. No, first the official closing, then the open end. And I wanted to share my screens for the official end, so I'm going to try to be back in a second.
Okay. See you then.
Yep.
I wanted to say I'll sing a song, but then we can't put it on YouTube. They'll pull us down. It's nice to see. Manuel is very happy.
I'm back.
Hey.
Let's just see if I can share my screen now. Okay. That was Q&A time. And now we have a bit of an info for all of you. There are some upcoming events. For those of you interested in seeing more online events, first of all, the next Hyvä Meetup. We haven't specified a date yet, but we have a call for speakers open. So if you want to follow in the footsteps of John and Ryan, please feel free to reach out to us, to Andreas, who manages our speakers here for the meetup. So if you have a case study to share, or how you made an extension compatible, or any other Hyvä stories, please reach out either here on the chat or via events@integermanagement.de. You'll also find the email address on the general event description. Then there's Alpine Day coming up. So for those of you who want to get more involved with the tech stack of Hyvä, or looking for more info about Alpine. And then there's Meet Magento Italy coming up, also beginning of June. I think it's 10th and 11th of June. Willem, you should know. You'll be a speaker.
I know I was available, and it's in my calendar, but I'm sure people will find which date it is. I'll be giving global overview of what it's like to work with Hyvä. So you get to see a bit more of, the nitty-gritty of what it's like to work with it. So I guess that's interesting for all of those that are wondering what you get if you buy Hyvä, and what it's like to work with. And the Alpine Day is also going to be really nice, because he's going to announce a version 3 of Alpine, and it's going to have some really good performance improvements and new functionalities.
Even faster.
Yeah, it's going to be major for the Hyvä product, I'm pretty sure.
Cool. Yes, and then there's only, for me, the place to thank you all for bringing this together, also for the team to join the stage. Ina, Andrea, and Andreas, who were busy behind the scenes with all the questions and social media posts, etc. So this is now our official time to wrap things up. And do
Thanks,
a group.
team.
Thanks everyone who participated.
Yep.
And amazing Internet as a team. 4 people just working on organizing this meetup. I'm super grateful. And I think it was very useful for everyone that attended.
Yes, and I'm really happy for them to accept all my last-minute tasks that I pushed to them, like proofreading emails a few hours before the event and setting up roles a day before the event. And yeah, I think we've done a really nice job here. And I hope to see you all for the next meetup, whenever that may be. Suggest a date, maybe. Okay, so this is the official end, but we'll stay around here. And as a meeting place, you want to talk to others. So there will be sessions open for you, the Hangout corner. There will also be another session more focused on third-party modules and Hyvä. So make a choice, and then you be free, no moderators. You can join the chat, the video and audio chat as well, and enjoy, discuss.
Someone that's anonymously joined as Hyvä enthusiast asked where the link of the recording will be. I'm guessing that's a Magento employee that doesn't want to put in his real name. But we'll post the link on YouTube. So if you sign up to follow our YouTube channel, then you'll be notified when it goes live, because we'll only have the recording after we close this hop-in thing, and then we need to download it and upload it to YouTube. So that will be tomorrow.
Yeah. I remember the recording from the release party. Basically uploaded within, I don't know how many hours after the event closed. Yeah. All right.
How dare you, he writes. So maybe he doesn't work on Magento. Or he's offended that I didn't say Adobe.
Okay. Time to wrap this up here. People move over to sessions, pick a session, or go to networking to speak to someone directly one-on-one, and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, morning, and yeah, let's wave again.
Right, and we'll continue to chat in the several rooms, right?
Yep.
Right. See you in the sessions.
Okay. Bye, but not bye. See you in the next one.